whenever you guys are ready. It might be good to start with the intro first, if you don't.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it's good for you guys to have a background on how me and Yasmin even know each other, which links quite well with sort of what we're going to talk about. But I'll kick it off, Yasmin. Me and Yasmin worked together previously, and we started out both as BDRs in our previous role, and then obviously transitioned into what is an account executive role. So currently, I'm an account executive at Deputy. Yasmin, if you want to give a brief intro for yourself.
Yeah, so I'm now an account executive at One Password doing the SMB region or SMB. Yeah, you get what I mean.
Fine.
The region that I work is Ramia. And yeah, we started off as BDRs.
So obviously we knew and know quite well, the difference between Bant and Medpic. And to be very honest with you, there's so many different sales frameworks and methodologies out there. We actually were trained with Sandler, which I still use today. And then as a framework, we initially used Bant, but then started incorporating Medpic. And to be fair, I think it was really good that we utilized it as BDRs as well. I think as of today, I sort of have a more in-depth understanding of how I apply that in my sort of discovery calls slash qualifications. And that really helps. Obviously, we'll go more in depth on the how, but applying both together with different aspects, obviously based on who you're talking to as well, can definitely help you achieve the goal, which in our case is selling. But you can apply it realistically anywhere. So different methodologies, as I said, there's so many out there, but we're going to focus on BANT and MEDPIC, which I think are the two key ones. I honestly, I didn't prepare a slide. I wouldn't call it a presentation, but I put together a visual just so we have something. I've been extremely busy, but I thought let's just have something to look at. I think I have to send a request to share my screen. Real. Let's see if I find what I have to share. I think it's this one. Yeah, perfect. So literally just to have a visual, and I found this funny when I saw it. There's so much out there, and it's understanding what to apply and how. And realistically, you can learn so much from, in our case, it was Sandler, Medpic, Bant. But I tend to mix it all, depending on who I have in front of me. I still use my upfront contract today. I don't know, Yasmin, if you still use that, but that's more Sandler focused. And then obviously when it comes to going through the discovery call and the qualification to then get into that negotiation phase, that's where MedPick comes in handy. So Yasmin, if you want to kick in, how do you sort of initiate your discovery call? What do you find valuable from sort of the BDR days, MedPick versus BANT, and then we can go a little more in depth about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe we can start off with like why is Medpic useful? So I think most people think Medpic is just for AEs, but as a BDR, I really believe it made me 10 times better because I wasn't just booking meetings, I was qualifying for real ping and spotting potential champions. It also gave me confidence in conversations because I had a structure to fall back on. So instead of focusing on booking meetings, I started thinking, is this actually a problem worth solving? Will this go anywhere after the demo? So MidPick helped me shift from volume to value. And honestly, I think that helped me hit my target faster. In terms of what was the second question?
And
Sorry,
I think
Sarah.
what I would add there as well is realistically as an AE, we have, a target we have to give the business sales and we have to sell, we have ARR, MRR, whatever it may be. As a BDR, you have meetings booked. So obviously your goal is to achieve that, but the quality of those meetings will separate you from anyone else. So if you have a, close rate, so you pass those meetings, you use MedPick as a BDR and you're qualifying them at a point where the AE, easily can progress them because it's an actual opportunity. The business will recognize that, oh, you know what, Yasmin had a hit rate that was, her percentage was very high of everything she was passing, which means her qualification, her discovery call, was in depth enough to pass what was quality. Because most of the time we think quantity versus quality, because we all want to hit that goal. But I think it's also important to try and, disqualify where needed and try and pass quality because that does make a difference. It stands out.
Can I
100%.
just maybe step in for a second? For people that don't really know what like even a sales methodology is, do you want to, Sarah, just explain what it means in terms of a sales funnel, what it even means for an SDR, where is it involved? Is it involved on a cold call, a discovery stage? Because a lot of these guys and girls listening in today, they've never really worked in sales before, the vast majority of them. So maybe this is very unusual for them.
I think it's a funny way of putting it. So Sandler, which is an example, right? We're trained with this type of methodology. Um, it's sort of like understanding how to ask those in-depth questions, understanding the pain. The way I used to position it was sometimes it feels like we're therapists. We ask, why are you looking for this product? Why? What's your need? Tell me more about it. Open up. Tell me your pain. It's a way to sort of, get a better understanding of why they engage with us in the first place. What can we solve as a company? Because obviously we're selling something to them, so we need to understand if we're a good fit. But it's also the way you potentially try and understand the customer as well. So it's all psychological selling, I'd say. The aspect of asking why, tell me more, it's because the customer speaks about his pain and he becomes more aware of it himself by saying it himself rather than me, some random salesperson speaking to them. They realize, oh, you know what? I actually do have a problem I need to solve. And the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm recognizing it. Same thing with the upfront contract. That is a way where, for example, and I'll give an example. I open my call by saying, hi, our call's going to last about half an hour today. Our agenda's this. We're going to talk about the product, talk about why you got in touch with us. The call can end two ways. Either we're a good fit and we'll then discuss next steps, or we're not a good fit and we have contact. We will keep in touch in the future if you ever do need a software like ours. And it's just a way to be transparent, set those standards of, I'm not trying to sell your product or book a meeting just because I want to. I really want to understand what you need and why. And I don't know, Yasmin, if you have another something else you'd add, but
Yeah, I think just to make it a bit easier, if you go into your slide there, number 3, the ban one. So ban is very basic qualification. You're just trying to find the budget, the authority, the need, and the timing, which essentially is your job as a BDR or SDR, right? But you want to go and dig a little bit deeper because ban misses the nitty-gritty parts and what's ultimately going to make you the best BDR, sorry, and best AE if that's what you want to do later on. So if you go to your MedPick slide just above. So your med pick gives you a full view of the deal. As a BDR and SDR, you don't have to go through each one of them, but it's good to look at some. Like, for example, as a BDR, I would focus on pain, champion, and decision process. To make it really easy for you, I think of ban like a compass. And then MedPick is like Waze or Google Maps. It shows you the turns, the traffic, the obstacles, everything that's going to happen in your deal. So yeah, those are the two ways how I look at BAM and MedPick and how I think it could help just qualifying your deals.
and obviously that's more of a structure. So, I was talking about Sandler before. That's more of a sort of like this way I sell, the way I talk, the way I position certain things. This is more of a framework because you're literally asking them, okay, quantify me, what is currently impacting your business and why. So I want numbers. I want to understand, for example, in what I sell, the return of investment that the customer gets is it's a scheduling software. So imagine a restaurant, they're super busy, or a hotel, they need to create a rota for their staff. Right now they're doing it manually, pen and paper, gets lost, errors, people are off, you need to manually and like check annual leave. You have it all on a system. It's all there on a software. You can access it from anywhere, and you don't have to pay people to build that rota. So they're saving money by implementing this software because they can automate the process. So that's a quantifiable something they can measure is currently they're spending 2, 3, 4 hours a week just building a schedule for their employees, for example. And why Yasmin mentioned we can't apply it to every single call as a BDR is because on the first call, you wouldn't want to ask them what their paper process is, or you could, but they won't really share it because it's a very in-depth question. So that's why at the beginning of the call, I said it's important to understand, how the call's going and apply a bit of both. So I don't know what else you'd add, Yasmin, but we can go more maybe granularly and how these can help and why they help in a deal.
Yeah, definitely. You can kick it off.
Right. So metrics, as I said, quantifiable justification. So what's the economic impact? Economic buyer, why is that important? You want to know at the start who's basically going to approve the budget for the project, because if you're speaking to an intern, they don't have that power, if that makes sense. So me, for example, and it's quite a funny example, I was a project assistant years ago, and the commercial team said to me, okay, find me a software that does this, give me three options, ask for how much their cost, look at the demo. And I did that. I went through that whole selection process. But in the end of the day, the final call was of the commercial director. And people on the call, and I relate to them now because obviously I'm in sales, thought I was that person making the final decision. And I wasn't. I was just there to gather information, bring it back to my boss, and then my boss would have decided what to do with it. And at the end, she didn't do anything. So that person I spoke to, that seller, went through the whole process of showing me the product, the demo, but never asked me, are you the person in charge of budget? And I wasn't. So it's super important to get that information straight away, to then direct the call and understand, okay, who am I supposed to speak to about commercials? Who makes that final call? Then obviously we have the decision criteria, so the technical aspects. What do I base my final decision on? Why would I implement this solution? What are my requirements? So in my case, it could be the system needs to be the UX design needs to be very straightforward, ease of use. Everyone says that. So maybe we ask, what do you mean by ease of use? Because everyone has a different point of view. What else, Yasmin? Something that's potentially something that you relate to in cybersecurity, because obviously we sell in two different worlds, but um,
I
integrations, for example, could be a requirement.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in cybersecurity are very straightforward and they just say, we need to become more secure. And I think that's where MedPick and Band can really help you because you're there trying to lay up your questions. You're there to try and find out why. So, why do you need to become more secure? What's happening? What's the impact? And that's where you're really digging into that decision criteria, always asking the whys. Even if it's annoying, just keep asking the whys. You don't want to be a police officer, okay? You don't want to interrogate them. You just want it to be supernatural. And I think that's what's really important with MedPick. It's so easy to just make it a script.
Like a
You
tick box, yeah.
Yeah, you just need to ditch that script and go in with a few questions. Start human. So just ask, how are things going? Be curious about their role, and then use MedPick as a framework. So let it guide you to make the conversation flow, but let it sound like a conversation, not a checklist, like Sarah said.
Yeah.
So
Because you
just
don't want
have
to give this, do
as
that.
yeah, so as a BDR again, you don't want to go through all of these. You just want to focus on a few. Um, Pain, champion,
Okay.
decision process. What else would you say, Sarah?
Competition is always good to know. If you know they're evaluating something else from the discovery call, that could also just a heads up. You just literally just take notes. That can help sort of understand, okay, why are you looking at someone else? Could it be a requirement? Because I, for example, sometimes find they're looking at a complete different product and, maybe they're evaluating us, but we don't actually do what they want us to do. So once you're in the role and you know what competition's out there, it's also good to help you disqualify, if that makes sense. So that one's a good one to ask. Pain, obviously. Decision process, maybe just understanding who's the decision maker rather than getting into, okay, board members, etc., but say, okay, who's the decision maker? Are you the person in charge that finalizes and signs off? That's important to understand as well. I don't know, Yasmin. I think these are
Sorry,
the big ones.
I just read a really good question on the chat by Mindy.
Oh,
She asked, which part of the medpick do you find most critical for winning deals? How do you coach others or collaborate? Okay, I can answer the first one. Which part of the medpick? So it really depends on what role you're in. But if I had to pick one, it would be pain. Because without pain, the rest of medpick just doesn't make sense. You can find the decision maker or the champion, but if there's nothing to fix and it's just a nice to have, it's not a real opportunity. Might as well just disqualify early and you have more time to find a real
yeah.
opportunity. So yeah, it's really important to dig into pain early because it just gives you more confidence in what you're handing over to your AE and builds your credibility, builds your close rate. So definitely pain.
Yeah, completely agree with that one.
Um, do you want to take the second question,
I
Sarah? I'm
can't
just
read because I'm sharing my screen.
okay.
Can you read it
How
out?
do How do you coach others or collaborate with your team when using MEDPIC on complex accounts?
How do you
Ooh.
coach others when?
How do you coach others or collaborate with your team when using MEDPIC on complex accounts?
Hmm.
Do you mean like when you're working with your AE?
Oh, yeah, or BDR in my case or our case.
Okay. I think if you're working with your AE, make medpick your shared language, right? So start by having your AE as your best friend. Ask them what matters the most for them, because maybe this account already exists and you're just trying to upsell. So there's already a pain there, you're trying to discover more. So find out with your AE, what is that? What is the thing that you're trying to discover? Maybe they're stuck on a paper process, or maybe they need more clarity on metrics. So real numbers showing you what is wrong with the solution, and then tailor your outreach or discovery to go deeper in that area. Um, and then when you're coaching, I think
Medpic, not too much. I think when it comes to coaching, we focus with my BDR and we focus more on like objection handling. So we have accounts we want to target. So even before going through Medpic with our customers, it's mainly identifying the pain. So if we know we want to target an account, we're outbounding, so we're going full cold. We do top to bottom. So maybe I can try and target C-suite directors, and he can try and target, from bottom, so managers, and we make our way up. And we try initially to understand, is there a project? So, don't know where I position that in MedPick, but is there a project decision criteria? Do you need something as of now that has to do with cybersecurity or workforce management? Yes, okay. What are your requirements for that? That's when you can start utilizing the framework. Okay, what are your requirements? Are you evaluating, competition? Who are you speaking to if there's a project? And after that, obviously you'd book a discovery call to go more in depth. But I think when it comes to relationship AE BDR, a lot of it is objection handling, identifying the right accounts. And then once you get them on the phone, you go through project decision criteria, competition. What's your pain? How can we help you solve it? Don't know, Yasmin, if you'd add anything else or if we understood the question, because
yeah, did we answer your question?
You can ask your question, or who's it? Mindy, if you want to just unmute yourself, you can ask your question if you want again.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi guys. So you actually answered the question really well, so that kind of answers enough for me. So yeah, that's more than enough really. But thank you.
Well, maybe I can
Thank you.
ask you this question from Ahmed. A quick question for you both. Have you ever blended parts of Manic and Sandler in a deal? What did that look like?
all the yeah,
100%.
all the time. I still do it all the time.
It's especially during like outbound or discovery. If you blend Medpick and Sandler, it makes the conversation more natural. So like for example, what Sarah mentioned earlier, the upfront contracts, just straighten up, tell them who you are, why you're calling. and then go into MedPick and discover the pain
Yeah.
and whatever else.
And then there's something in Sandler called the pain funnel, which we also, if you guys want to look up and you write pain funnel Sandler, it's literally like a funnel and it's structured as you start by asking them the why. Okay, why now? Talk more about it. And it literally, you just ask those. As we said, not like a tick box, but more like in conversation, you're genuinely interested in why they're sort of looking for the software. And I always say to them, and this also came from Yasmin years ago, I remember it was like, we position ourselves as a consultant, not as a seller. You know, we're here to help you. I don't want you to onboard a solution and in 6 months' time you're going to phone me all angry and tell me, why did you sell this to me? And then you're going to want to churn. Realistically, I want you to be with us long term. So the whole point is for me to sell you something that's the right fit and not just because I want to sell, because that's not good for anyone, not for the brand I work for, not for me on a personal level, because then you're gonna start spamming me. And then yeah, it's we're more consultants than
Yeah.
sellers.
I think as a BDR, that's the most important thing that you need to internalize because, guys, sales is a mindset game. If you can play with mindset, you are going to win at this. Just always remember, I am not a salesperson. I'm just a consultant trying to help you. And if that makes it easier, tell the customer that. Say, I'm just trying to help you. And that's another way of mixing Sandler and Medpick as well, actually. So there's something called reversing in Sandler. So if I sense that there was a pain in like a cold call, someone is really being nice to me and giving me the time, instead of jumping into a pitch, I wouldn't pitch. I'll just use the Sandler technique of reversing and say like, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Or that sounds super frustrating. How long's that been a problem? What is it impacting? And that just keeps them talking and helps me qualify without asking them any questions, without even having to pitch. They're pitching themselves.
Yeah. And
There
I
is
think
sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go on. I was going to say, I think it's important to be transparent as well. Like saying, I want to genuinely help you. I say it all the time. I even say, okay, I genuinely like, I work on transparency if it costs too much. And this is further down the line, obviously, when we're discussing budget, after we've discussed the economic buyer, etc. Just tell me, if we're not the right fit, same thing. Transparency is key, because I don't want to sell you something, as I said, that's not right for you. And I just want to work together and I just want to get some feedback. And if it's not the right fit, maybe in 5, 6, a year's time, um, you'll just get back in touch and then we can talk.
Definitely.
I'll just read out a quick question for you if you don't mind. When you are working as a BDR, are the customers you're going after targeted, or could it be a stab in the dark? So, like, how does that work in your companies?
Oh, memories.
It could be love in the dark.
Yeah, it could be anyone. A lot of the time there's research, but obviously as a BDR, there's also quantity and then there's understanding what to pass, and that's where quality comes in. But yeah, as Yasmin said, a lot of the time it depends on the product. So the product I'm selling now, for example, I know I can only target, or I ideally I'd have to target a certain type of industry. So obviously I won't be targeting the industries I know automatically disqualify themselves. But for what we were doing before, I think it was a good fit with literally anyone. It was mainly the department. So there it was, yeah, you literally. It was just getting in touch.
Yeah. But look, that doesn't have to scare you. So even if it is a stab in the dark, you try to make it targeted, right? So you make it warm by digging into that account, doing research, looking for triggers like job posts, tech stacks that they might already have, or leadership changes, even like reports online. Every organization has a report online that says they have budget for some type of thing. So when you call them, even though it is a step in the dark, they have no idea who you are. At least you're going in with information and they need you. And I think that leads us nicely to our next one. Have you ever felt, oh, it's just left. Have you ever faced a difficult situation and how did you deal with that? I think both of us have. So in our previous company that we worked for, when we were BDRs, there was a security incident. So I wouldn't say they got hacked, but yes, there was some type of security incident that happened. We did have loads of difficult situations. We both got sworn at a few times. And some people are just not very nice. Some people don't like cold calls. Some
Yeah.
people don't, even if they're customers and something
Yeah.
goes wrong in the company that you're working at,
Oh
it
yeah.
could it could happen that they're just not in the mood, and you just don't have to take it to heart. These people don't know you. They're never going to see your face. You don't care. All you care about is your money, because at the end of the day, you're a BDR or an SDR or in sales to make money. No one is in sales because they like it. So every time if someone ever says anything bad on the phone, you hang up and you say, okay, to the next one. I need to make money the next time. Every no is closer to a yes.
For me, like even recently it happened, feedback from a previous seller and I tried to get in touch and they were like, well, the person I spoke to a year or 2 years ago even didn't like the way they talked to me, the way they organized everything. They were very slow, no response. I didn't manage to get that meeting. But I said to him, I'm different. I'm a different person. I have a different approach. I actually like helping my customers. I sit down with them, I try and build out their patterns and yeah, I try to, as I said, be more of a consultant, create that rapport with them. Rapport's fundamental. And the call ended okay, as in like he was like, yeah, well, you guys lost a sale. And I was like, well, at the time, which was 2 years ago, but as I said, new organization, new people, let's talk maybe further down the line. And you will, as Yasmin said, find people that don't want to talk to you. But you always smile and you know how you want to sell, you know what career you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it. And as I said, I like to help my customers because that builds a rapport and long term that will help because people will remember you and they'll come back and if they're looking for a solution or if you change company, you've created that rapport with them and that always helps.
Okay, perfect. I think we've got about 8-ish minutes left before Sarah and Yasmin have to leave, but I'll just maybe ask you these guys' questions quickly. So the first one is from Adil. He's saying, thank you, and could you expand more about the buyer's potential purchasing power in Section A of BANT? I'm a bit confused.
So the buying potential,
The buyer's potential purchasing power. So like
purchasing power. Okay.
maybe
Well, I
Oh, what is okay? So authority is literally who has authority over that deal? Who's gonna sign? Who is the main decision maker?
that you're gonna
That's
bring a budget
that's
and
Ooh,
spend. So yeah,
sorry.
right. I'll keep on going. Okay, you go.
Sorry, there was noise in the background. Yeah, so literally just who's the main decision maker, who's making the final deal. That's just to gauge if this person you're speaking to is just a champion, just the guy who's doing research, or the actual decision maker.
Yeah, so the
So
buyer, the person that will effectively, each department has a budget per se. The financial year starts, let's say January, departments sit down, they have a conversation. I target HR, Yasmin targets IT. Every department has a different budget that they know that can spend for whatever it may be. In their case, it's a software that they know can help their department. So literally understanding who's the person with that power. Purchasing power literally means the person to sign off part of that budget, and decide where that budget's then going to get allocated. Because once the financial years come and they've had that conversation, it's very hard to get more money from the company. So that's also why having these conversations is hard. It's because everyone realistically has a budget and they need to try and stay within that. So yeah, literally just understanding who buys.
I would love to throw this other question at you from Ahmed. Great question. Do you have a go-to question that unlocks real urgency in a conversation, even budget or authority or clear question mark? So do you have a go-to question that gets the customer to, feel that urgency in a sales call?
I think so it depends on what you're selling, obviously. Because in cybersecurity, you have certain things that are a bit more important versus what I'm currently selling now. Um, but my go-to question for customers I'm relating to is time. How much time are you spending to manually input stuff? Time is money. You're paying someone 2, 3, 4 hours a day just to create your schedule, just to process it, check the timesheets, put it through payroll. You're spending money. And as I said, for companies, money is important because obviously, you want higher revenue and you're not getting it because you're spending money in places you could actually not be spending it in. So that then sort of links into the return of investment of the product. So, okay, if we implement our solution, money-wise, you could save this because you're not going to be paying an individual anymore 3 hours, 4 hours, because it's, let's say they have £14 an hour, and that's quite a lot of money on a weekly and monthly basis. So then the return of investments, obviously, you're saving that because it will take the person an hour instead of 4. So that's a reduction in cost. So that's personally for what I'm selling. But as I said, depends on the product. But a lot of the time, I find it's time. And especially if you're like an SMB, depends as well your line size. SMB is all mainly pen and paper. People don't really have that much implemented. Yasmin, I don't know if you have a view.
Yeah, I think one thing that works for any product you're selling is why now. That really creates it. You really find out why, or even if there is an urgency, just why now? What's gonna make a difference if you don't act?
Love it. Just another really good question. So if the person that you're talking to on the in the sales process, if they don't have the authority over the sales process or over the budget, where do you go from there? Who do you get in touch with? How do you go about that?
Oh, hard one. So they could be your champion. So you still want to have that rapport with them. You still want them to like the product, like you as a person, because as I said, selling is all about that relationship you're building, that trust. Trust is at the basis. And then trying to understand who. So they might not share it most of the time. They might say, "Oh, I can't give you out that information." But then I'd say if you've started off with management level or mid-management, you slowly make your way up. Okay, who's head of the department? Who's C-suite? Who's in charge of the department as a whole? And obviously that research LinkedIn is key. So if you guys don't use LinkedIn that much, use it for anything, whether it's applying for jobs, sales, LinkedIn is gold. So yeah, I think it's just understanding who's in charge of the department as a whole, but your champion will unlock that for you if you create a good report.
Awesome. Zishan, you can go ahead with your question. We've got about 2 minutes left. So this will
No, I'll try and make it quick. Just want to say thank you to both of you for obviously giving up your time to attend this meeting. Couple quick questions. Would you say you were demonized or kind of told off by the manager for kind of going off of script when obviously doing outreach? Because I feel like I don't want to sound like a robot and stick to like a script and just repeat the exact same lines. I prefer to keep it a bit more natural. And second question is, what was the mindset shift, if any, when you transitioned from a BDR to an AE?
So the first one, I personally like when it's not too structured. So the way you're doing it, if it sounds like a conversation, like that is the important part. So the way you have to see BANT and MedPick is mainly you have it on the side, you know what's important to know, but you have to implement it into your conversation. You don't want it to sound like a tick box. So as natural as it can be, um, make it yours, Maybe at the beginning I was a bit too structured and it doesn't sound good and the customer will see that. So make it yours. I like my opening to be why now, like Yasmin said. So why are you looking for the product? And that's not the metric. That's just in the middle, So why now? That's identifying the pain. Like that's further down MedPick. Then once I've identified the pain, maybe I move on to the metric and I say, oh, how much time are you spending on this? Like you've mentioned you have this problem, so how much time? Quantify that for me. And then from there, I might move on to the decision criteria and I might say, okay, so you need to make it yours. And obviously, when you have someone in front of you, you'll have a feel of how they converse as well. And it will come natural after you've done it a couple of times, I'd say. I don't know if Yasmin's still here.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm holding the baby at the same time, multitasking.
Sorry,
So
the call might automatically end in like 30 seconds. But if you guys are free and if you want to carry on,